Hello again, everybody. It's Harry Boxer, the Technical Trader at TechTrader.com. It's Saturday, the 16th of November. This is the weekend webinar. And folks, I think today's webinar is going to be one of the more important ones of the year. I really do, based on everything I'm seeing technically. Let's go over it. The S&P 500 in 1 year has gone from 4,100 to 6,000, 1,900 points, almost 50%. Think about it, 50% in 12-month period. Pretty amazing stuff. So do you think the market was due for a pullback, especially after the spike up it had the week before? Well, yeah, it came down and it came down pretty well. As a matter of fact, the S&P 500 is right on support. You can see it. If we don't bounce, and even if we do and it's weak, this market could come down. Now I have layers of support at the following levels: 58.52. That's right below where we are. 57.48, which is down here near the juxtaposition of the rising trend line, lateral price support, and the gap fill. That's a logical place for a market to come down to and bounce, whether it rolls over at that point and gets down to the next level, which I have as 56.65, and then 55.65 down here. So I'm talking about various levels of potential targets or support. The last one being the most important 1-year trend line. So, we go below that, we'll be at 5,400, 5,200, maybe even less. But ultimately, I got a target down here that's possible around 4,800 on a long-term rising bottoms line. I'm not saying we're going to do one of these, but we might very well do that over the next few months. Problem is where we are now, and let's not get too long down the road, is the most important. We're at a support level on the S&P 500. And NASDAQ 100, same thing. Ran up, pulled back hard to a trend line that's a shorter term trend line, just above the moving averages, which are about 20,100. That's at 50. And then the lateral price support, which is very important, that if broken, I think plunges this market. That's around 19,880 and then 19,700. So this zone in here is really big. We could come down into it and bounce and then roll over. Lots can happen, but let's go on. Some of the things that have bothered me this week is that the IWM, which was looking really good and hit the top of its channel, in what looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Near lateral resistance, short-term channel and longer-term channel. It came down very hard. As a matter of fact, down the last 4 days in a row after hitting a new multi-year high. And we closed right on support at the prior double top. Not quite the gap fill yet. You can see where beneath that in this zone, there's 222, 24 is the big support level. So should we plunge into that, I suspect we bounce. Transportation index, which had finally broken out after months and months and months, actually almost a year, through that resistance level, and then pulled back and tested the trend line again, then exploded. But you can see the top of the channel is being tested, which also can be support. As a matter of fact, this is the way I often look at channels. When I see this pull back to there, they often will go up along the top of that channel. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or whether it's going to plunge, but I'm concerned about some other things as well. Let's look at the underlying technicals. The McClellan oscillator is down to minus 74. That's the weakest reading in 3 weeks, but it's really not terribly weak. I mean, not terribly oversold, that's for sure. That needs to get down closer to over at least 110.20, more like 150 to 200. And we've seen several down in the 250 to 280 range, even one way down here 2.5 years ago. We got one back in 20 when we really got crushed, all the way down to minus 252, and we had a 289. So, I mean, we need to get down below 200, in my opinion, for market to be in a better setup mode for more of a major rally. So we may have to come down another day or two. The percentage of stocks also is a little bit above their 40, is a little bit higher than we normally see at lows. So another reason why we may need another couple of days of decline to get this into plunge down towards the 28 to 30 range. VIX volatility index, which had been thwarted at 23.4 range, came down and plunged to the lowest level since July. Now we did reach down in 11-12 range in June, July, in that period. So we may need to come down there to get to a more opportunistic point. But if it breaks the upside, particularly above 24, we're in panic mode and the market plunges and everything spikes like it did there. Let's take a look at the major components and what they're telling us. Apple still above the trend line in here, but what I'm seeing is very dangerous. This is a 4-day drop, a week and a half long consolidation, which could be a bear flag, if this is in fact leg 1 and 2. In addition to that, this pattern here is a left shoulder ahead and a right shoulder. If Apple breaks the neckline of this pattern, in other words, if it gets underneath 220, it could start to plummet down towards 214 or even worse. That would really hurt the market and help the indices come, in more of a selling spike down climax type mode like it did here in early August. Amazon has had a beautiful 5-wave move off the spike low in August. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5th wave up. But what a plunge it took Thursday and Friday. Well, first of all, it reversed Thursday, but Friday it dropped from 211 under 200 for 12 points and closed, but did bounce at 202. So there's a support level at the low on Friday. Beneath that, it's vulnerable towards a trend line of moving area down there, 190, 193. So we're going to just see whether this market can bounce from the get-go. But my feeling is it may spill over for a sharp sell-off and then bounce on bargain hunting. Google, also weak. After forming an inverse head and shoulder and breaking out with a breakaway gap and exploding to resistance, it came down and tested and bounced back, but it also failed at resistance a second time, and now it's rolling over. What's the key level? 169.5. Below that, 67.5 and 62.5 are potential. I'd really like to see it hold in that zone and make a move up towards 195. Microsoft. Overall, I'm skeptical about this pattern. It looks like a massive left shoulder complex, a head, and a right shoulder complex. The entire pattern could be a head and shoulder, or it might be just one long coiling, wedging type pattern that if it breaks out, particularly above 445-ish, we can make a parallel or parabolic type move back up to at least test the high again around 469.70, 468 and change. So we'll see about Microsoft, but if Apple breaks and Microsoft breaks and the others turn around, it won't be pretty. NVIDIA finally broke on Friday. It was holding up very well for about 6 days and was flagging very nicely. But when momentum stocks break, we usually get a plunge in the market or some sort of steeper pullback. This gap from here, excuse me, 2 weeks ago, excuse me, 2 weeks ago, we had a gap and popped out of it and set new all-time highs in NVIDIA and stayed there for a week. But Friday was a breakdown. And you can see it closing ran on the trend line and at the 21-day moving average. So let's put it this way, a move below 140 on NVIDIA could start a bit of a plunge in the market towards 133 on that. Netflix made a new all-time high it's one of the strongest stocks on the board, and it made a new all-time high on Thursday, reaching 841 before pulling back to 825 on Friday, down nearly 12. Could it be the beginning of a deeper pullback? Yeah, but take a look at his long-term chart. Even just since last year, this has gone from 344 to 840. 500-point run up on a Netflix in 1 year. So is it overbought? Is it a new all-time highs? Yeah, it's both, but and momentum hasn't really broken except for that day on Friday. We'll just have to see if it's able to hold or it's going to come down and do some testing towards 750. Meta, not a good day Friday. Matter of fact, Friday it broke the trend line and it closed slightly below lateral price support and below the 50-day moving average. I'm concerned. There's support just below at 541.2. We break that, it can go into plunge mode. So I'm careful on Meta. And Tesla was a monster in the midway for a week or two, but it came down. Now, excuse me, it's an orderly retreat. But a move, I would say, below 297.8 would cause a deeper retrace towards 275 and then 250. So careful on that one. It is coming off also a large 1, 2, 3. That takes us to the channel top. So any fourth wave consolidation could lead to 400 at some point. Nevertheless, depends on the market environment, of course. So that's a look at some of the NASDAQ generals that we follow closely and the FANG group. So let's move on. A look at the major ETFs we follow, and particularly these three groups. Now watch this. The SMH broke a short-term trend line. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, take that out, and say that this is the more important longer-term trend line. Okay? It's right above it. It's also on a platform of support, but it's below the 50 and a gap down below the 50, and that's never a good thing. So careful on SMH too, because the SMH could signal that it's going to lead the market lower. If it gets under 237, there's trouble in River City, and we're going to probably see 229 and maybe even down into 1820 range. Also, biotechs got slam dunked. Look at this move. I'm shocked, quite frankly. Now I do know that biotechs have much higher PE ratios or no PE ratios at all. Most of them trade on future, but when the market comes down, those are the first to get hit, and that's not a good sign about the market rollover. Look at this plunge in LABU. Are you aware that last week LABU went from 152.5 to 98.40? That's right, 54 points in a week on the downside. That's the biggest plunge I think I've ever seen, including all of this move going all the way back. It's a pretty good plunge here, but I got to tell you that going back several years is one of the worst declines I've ever seen for the biotech index. Now there is support here, so I'm expecting some sort of bounce, but does it come from a lower level first? This is oversold and due for a bounce, period. Biotechs, I looked at a lot of individual ones. Some of them got creamed. So not a good sign when the biotechs leading the market lower, because it usually means that we've reached a speculative peak and that the excesses are coming out of it. Biotechs being one of those excesses. What's the third group? Well, this is going to shock you, folks. As bad as SMH is looking and the LABU does look at financials. How about that? On Friday, they were actually up. Hold on 10 seconds. Okay, so I'm back. Sorry about that. The financials held up extremely well, and at a point that not only did they hold up, but they actually went up on Friday with everything else going down, which is amazing to me. Notice this rising tops line, we broke through it, which actually makes the angle now looking like this. So this is a multi-wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave anyway. So if the market comes down, this certainly will, especially if it gets below 156.5. But right now it's pressing towards 180. Pretty amazing stuff for the financials, considering right now that with the economy doing as well as it has, the Fed is talking about maybe not cutting rates. So I'm not sure what the emphasis is behind financial being strong, but when I looked at your Morgan Stanleys and your JP Morgans and your Goldman Sachs and B of A's and Wells Fargo's, you'll see how phenomenally strong they are, which is something you want to look at, because if they turn weak, then just put a fork in the market. All right, so that covers those three ETFs, and we also follow, of course, gold, silver, etc. Here is gold, and it does not look good. All right, and especially since the election, just getting hammered, broke its trend line, broke its moving averages, they've rolled over. Yeah, this is oversold, and we may get a bounce, but I got to tell you, if gold bounces and bounces weekly, I would back off on precious metals. Here's a GDX, major channel broken. Here's your Nugget and JNUG. You can see they're all extremely oversold and near some support, but broken. Silver. Back to the trend lines on SLV. What about AGQ? Same thing. At least silver's holding up better, but I wouldn't call it that better. I would call it better relative to gold. Gold just got whacked. Silver got hammered, but they're both at levels of short-term oversold. Let's move on to natural gas. The KOLD had broken down, snapped back to resistance. So there's a chance that you may see gas, if this breaks down, watching the boil. I'm just not excited about it until I see the boil get over 44. Now this has been reverse split. Amazing, isn't it? So these ETFs are only day trades, in my opinion. They're very difficult to swing. And what about the actual oil, USO? Take a look at the pullback in USO on Friday, right on support, and stand back a little bit. And you can see that this whole pattern broke the trend line, snapped back to it in the rising wedge, rolled over and bounced, and rolled over again. The next target is 66 and 64, and eventually potentially 61. It's a negative configuration on gold and oil at the same time. Be careful. Let's move it. We have a lot of stocks to talk about, a lot. I decided not to peel back any of them, so it's a long list. Let's just do them quickly, and we'll start with AAOI. Phenomenal move, folks, but I want to point out that since August low, it's gone from under 7 to almost 30, fourfold increase in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-way move. Technically, you got to be a seller up here. Doesn't mean it can't go higher, but the risk reward is not good. ADN exploded literally vertically as it moved from 172 to, get this, 172 to 879, a 7-point move, or about 400% in 2 weeks. You think it's overbought? It can be, but this is the kind of stock that if it sets up properly, could be a good longer-term move. AEYE exploded. We put a swing on it. It had a beautiful engulfing reversal. It then ran up to target number 1 and back right off. Bounced on Friday in the bad market, a good sign, but I would keep a strong stop underneath Friday's low because then we're vulnerable to more levels. Look at the long-term target though, 38.45. A firm also with a big pop, coil for a couple months, then breakout, retest, reversal bar with a gain of 6% on a lousy day on Friday. That's the kind of thing you want to see. You want to see relative strength. The thing to do in this market, folks, other than buying some shorts and trading some of the relative strength stocks, is to start to create a list of stocks that are relatively acting like AFRM is, making new multi-year highs or all-time highs. Agrify, how about that move last week? 440, you got it, 22. Agrify went from 440 to 22 in 1 week and backed off, but it's got an inside day on Friday. It doesn't look done. On the other hand, a stop under 12 is warranted, targeting 18 and 21. ALGS also goes vertical. Trades from 9 to 20, nearly 22. More than doubled in a week. Now you see Thursday, Friday, it pulled back, held, and tried to rally again. So you know where there's resistance in that zone and there's support right about 16. If it breaks out, it can go vertical, get all the way up into the high 20s. API explodes in September, pulls way back, fills the gap, forms a little base, breaks out and spikes. Now it's a wedge, not a bad pattern. If it breaks out of that, we're looking at 5.5, 6.5, and 7. APP. Well, I had to show you this chart because it blew me away after all that run up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at the fifth wave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth of a fifth with a breakaway spike gap to the upside. And yet, it's got a rising flag. How about that? I don't know how far they'll take this, but I will tell you this. The relative strength is phenomenal. It is extended, extremely overbought, fifth wave, and yet it doesn't look done, does it? ASTS, dangerous. This is one of my favorites last year. This year it went from under 3 to near 40, more than tenfold. And it did it quickly in 90 days and 120 days. Since then, consolidating. It tried to break out here and here, but it came down hard on Friday, only to close back up near the upper end of the range. So this is the kind of stock you have to put a stop for me under 20. Okay? ATGL. I just like this pattern. Explodes coils, spikes coils. Will we get a fifth wave? If we do, 19 to 22 target. Yep. First 14, of course. Atomera. Exploded out of a long downtrend. Spiked up from the beautifully formed pennant or coil. Broke out. We put a swing on it. It went from 3.5 to 7, doubling. And then it pulled down, but it reversed again on Friday. And right now, that's where you stop on the Friday's low. The extension could take you to 8 or 9. AUPH, junior biotech, that did reverse a little bit on Friday, but take a look at the base, the breakout, the coil, the pop. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. And if the fourth wave is still developing, and we did have I would call it a negative day on Friday. Nevertheless, if it continues to hold without breaking down, you might very well get this to the 9.5, 10. AVP, T. Beautiful 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-way move. Multiple waves up here and then exploding up in that rising pattern. This is very overbought. May extend. Target will be 18 if it does. Careful. AXTA breaks out to new all-time highs with a massive multi-year inverse head and shoulders. You see it? So it counts much higher if it goes, but it's also extended. Bank of America is one of the financials I wanted to show you. Right back up to the multi-year high from 2021 when it got up to 50 or so. It's now 47-ish. BE, Bloom Energy, went ballistic on a major breakaway gap on Friday after being halted. It did close in the upper end of the range, which is also very bullish. Extension is 26 if it goes. Problem is it may back and fill or pull back. But keep your eye on that one. With Bitcoin reaching over 90,000, over 91 actually. A lot of the Bitcoin strategy ETFs and stocks did very well. This one broke a base, spiked. And look at the way it's holding. Now, I don't know if Bitcoin's going, but I'm hearing projections of 120 or 140,000, believe it or not. I would think the target has to be in 28.5 first stop if anything like a spike up in Bitcoin near 100,000 or 98,000 or something like that occurs. That's one. BITX is another, even stronger. It's already near the all-time high, spike high that it reached earlier in the year. And you can see that this might fly into the 70s and 80s if that occurs. Black Sky Technologies has been phenomenal in just the last 6 weeks. It's gone from 386 to the high on Friday of 930. So let's just say 2.5 times its value. And there's a long-term resistance there at around 10.5, 11, which will be my next target with a stop under 7. BLCO breaks out of a base with a breakaway gap, falling wedge, falling flag, double top, target 21.5 and 24 if it continues. BLND, beautiful rising channel, multiple waves, broke out of a flag here, popped and then retested, targeting 6 and 7.5 if it continues. Dutch Brothers, major breakaway gap on earnings, and you can see where it's consolidating. My target's 55. BTCT, another Bitcoin related, went vertical, literally went from about 190 into the mid 20s, 12-fold increase or something like that. And it's sitting here consolidating, unbelievable. I don't know where they take this, but it's possible it extends if Bitcoin does. BYRN is a tech traded swing when it broke out. It got up to the target and backed off, formed a wedge, broke out again. This week it got back to the high of 1942, tagged 1948.50. So a little bit above it, but right about there, backed off a little, targeting 24 and 29. Cheesecake Factory, how about that? Long base of a couple of years, a breakaway gap and a pullback, but right now it's wedging nicely. My target's 53.5 and 58. CALM has been in a beautiful rising channel all year. From 42 to 95, it doubled, and now it's coiling. Now, I don't know if this is done. It doesn't look like a top. Again, if we do have one more leg up in the market, stocks like this can fly. Targeting 105. CANG breaks out of a base and went vertical. In the last 3 weeks, 155 to 4.25, and now flagging. Next target is 5. CAPR, breakaway gap, running gap, 2-day pullback, spike up, finally forming a flag in here. Now, I didn't want it below here. The pullback low is important. That's 15.35. The low on Wednesday, Thursday was 16.75. So it's still above support. It did bounce Thursday and had an inside day Friday. What I really need on it is to get going and get above 19.5, 20, and really start to move. 23.5 is the initial target, and then 29.30 is the next target zone. How about Cava? This restaurant chain has gone from the high 20s in a year, spiked up to 172 and change on Wednesday before reversing and closing at the low, and you can see it's back towards support. It's got a hold, and I would stop this one underneath 129.5. If it gets above 150, you might start to see it ramp up into the 165, 70 zone again. CCL, the cruise lines have done very well with oil coming down. Triple top breakout, quadruple top breakout, and now a rising channel. It's consolidating in here. Target 27. CDXC breaking out of a consolidation vertical, and then in a rising configuration with a target 8.75 and 10. Aluminum, China came out with a positive ruling for domestic aluminum. AA ran CENX, which is Century Aluminum. I think it's got a shot now getting back to the high from 22, but it spiked up to 27, 28. 30 is my target, actually. CLBT, look at this rising channel. Now, it did spike up a week and a half ago and reversed. So I would look at these two levels. First level was right here, about 17.5, 45. I needed to hold that, but the stop would be under these two lows if it gets under 1640. CLPT was looking great for a while, base breakout. Now it's pulled back to test trend line and price support. This one needs to hold 10.5. Your stops under that. Targeting 14 and 17. Cinemark 1, 2, 3, and this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks to me like it may be at a short-term peak and near resistance at the top of the channel as well. But I like the long-term look. If it gets through here, it can run into the 30s and 40s. CNTA, junior biotech, beautiful channel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up and flag. The flag breaks out. Pretty strong. Easy stop under 14.5. Targets 20. CONL, the ETF for Coinbase. We traded this great in the last couple of weeks. This has literally gone from 22 to 75 in 2 weeks, not even. So it needed to rest, and it did, but look at that bounce on Friday. Friday alone, down to 48, back up to 59, closed right there, and up 987. I would say that's outstanding technical strength. CORT, another biotech stock. You can see the pullback in this one last week, down every day. Very strong chart, overextended at that point. Now we're getting to where we're retesting. Corvus, and yet another biotech. Look at the down volume on Friday, underneath the trend line, underneath the moving averages. At lateral price support right there. Can't go any lower, or it's going to see 680 or less. Commvault, beautiful rising channel over the last year. Broke out, pulled back, popped again, and then made a new high on Thursday before reversing at 178. Probably too extended for me. This stock a year and a half, 2 years ago was 40, so it's gone fourfold. Carvana, talk about a move. How about under 4 to 259? Well, that took 2 years. It was worth the wait. Nevertheless, it's extended. However, that would be a bull wedge or coil. And if it breaks out of here, we're looking at 300, even 350. I think that the prison management companies, due to Trump being elected, went vertical after the election because they favor privatization of prison management. GEO is another. Both of these stocks ramped up. GEO looks even better with a breakaway gap, a run up, and a rising wedge. If this gets above 28, this could be in the low to mid 30s. CYBN is a long-term downtrend, another Biotech with an inverse head and shoulder, right up against resistance. Traded 2.2 million, which is a huge volume for that stock on Friday. Maybe about to break out. Keep an eye on it. Airlines are going nuts with oil coming down dramatically from the high 80s, low 90s into the 60s. Well, Delta Airlines gone from 39, get this, to 67. And I think that's good. Look at UAL. UAL from 37 to 90 to mid 90s, nearly tripling. So airlines are really about to extended. I would be careful with those. Just keep an eye on them for momentum, maybe retests. Delcath been up since a year ago when it was trading at 2.25. It made it up to 13, fivefold, and then some. Reversed, and it's testing. Just something to watch. I firmly believe that Dell and Oracle are two major beneficiaries of the AI revolution. As you can see, Dell had this massive move from the 30s to nearly 200. What was the high? 180-ish. Came down hard, 100 points, right back up about 50. More than that, 60. So I like the overall look of it. I think this has designs on being back to 175 and eventually 225 down the road. DESP, wonderful rising channel. Look at the breakout Friday, breakaway gap no less, up 17%. Mine was 5.4 million, second biggest in a couple years. Target 21. DJT, that's the Trump organization, had a big run before the election from under 12 to the mid 50s, more than fourfold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave down with a truncated fifth wave, also forming a wedge. So if you take that out, you'll see it. There's your big wedge, which calls for another big move back up towards 35, 45, and 55. But must stop under 25. DSP broke out last week, pulled back and then ramped up on Friday, and I have a target now of 19. DXYZ, beautiful base, breakaway gap here, running gap there, exploded literally in a week from 11 to 50. And now it's pulled back. When it bounced on Friday, I'd have to put a stop under the lows on Thursday and Friday, meaning under 26.5. Targeting 40 and 50. Wow. EDM. How about that long-term rising channel? It's a nice one. And it's gone from the 4 or 5 range to the mid-30s. Really ramping up as a beneficiary. It's a utility power generator type. Doing some smart things. Beautiful chart. Overbought at the top of the channel. ERJ's the tech trader swing we gave you, I believe it was back here. It may have been there in the mid-20s, and it's made it up to the $40 range. The long-term channel shows the possibilities that this stock could be headed towards 50. EVO, a big breakout the last couple of weeks, and particularly Thursday when it spiked. It got up to a resistance zone and backed off. It's something to watch. EWTX breaks out of a base, pops and forms that wedge, that coil we look for all the time. Well, they went from 25 to 38 and backed off. It's a biotech, another one of those victimization stocks. Biotech's got hammered back. Let's see if it holds support at the moving average. EXEL, yet another biotech that gapped 2 weeks ago, ran hard and rolled over every day last week. Another reason why the LABU and the BIB and biotech ETFs are getting hammered here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up. FEIM, the favorite of one of my institutional clients that has a great track record, a beautiful technical chart. It's been wedging for 3-4 months. If it breaks out and runs up, it targets at 14 and 16.5. FEIX. Check this out. Beautiful long-term trend that's taken us from 10 to 40 and multiple waves up. Had a bad week as it pulls back from an overbought condition to test support. Target 42. FLS, beautiful chart, a 2-year run that took it from 24 to low 60s and is flagging. Had to show it to you. FTI, another rising channel coming out of a base. And from that breakout at 8, it went into the low 30s for quadruple. It's setting up for a move that eventually could take it to 36.7. FTK, inverse head and shoulders, breakout, and a spike up. Now, Flowtech is oil and gas related. Some of the oil and gas drillers aren't doing well, but the looks to me like the component and oil and gas equipment and services suppliers are doing well. Anyway, target 9.5 and 11. FTNT, a security software stock, I believe. Anyway, major breakout to new all-time highs in the middle of this market last week. Always got to pay attention to that. I'll target 115. Gato, it's a junior silver stock. It did pull back with silver, but it's holding up better than most and still above the trend line. Keep an eye on this one. GBTC, obviously, Grayscale Bitcoin is a Bitcoin fund that did great after coming through a quadruple top of the breakaway gap. You see where that's configured now. In the last 2 years, it's gone from 7 and change to 73, tenfold increase, and yet doesn't look done yet. GDS, Information Technology Services Company that broke out here after flagging. It broke out here, flagged and popped, and you can see it flagging again. My target's at 28 and 33. GEO, we showed you earlier, powerful chart. GRAB breaks out of a low base, pops and pulls back, and then pops again to resistance in my target, which is around 5. Your targets are now 6 and 6.5. GVA, construction, really a nice, expansive, engulfing reversal bar, and then a run from mid-70s to high 90s before flagging. Doesn't look done to me either, does it? HNRG breaks out of a base, flags, and pops again. My extension target now is 16 on this. HNST, the Honest Company, broke out of a long coil and the ascending bull coil went vertical. Look at that week last week. 2 weeks now, it's gone from 3 3/4 to 720, nearly doubling. My target, 9. Robinhood. Everyone likes Robinhood. No, I don't. But anyway, base breakout, hard retest of the breakout point, and then a ramp up. It's now at the highest level since 21, 3-year high. 8WM, one of the finest looking charts on Wall Street. A beautiful rising tight channel. Extension target 125. INDI spiked. I put a swing on it. It's pulled right back to the breakout point into the gap. The problem is if it doesn't hold here at around 4, 4.25, it could be stopped out. Targeting 5.5, 6.5, and 8. INOD with a monster explosive move the week before last. Followed through a little bit on Monday, Tuesday. Got all the way up to 49 3/4 from a week ago at 20. This is up 150% a week and a half. So the pullback is normal. The volume is lower in the pullback. I do like it, but I'm going to wait to see how that develops if it develops a consolidation setup. IONQ, after breaking the base around 10, has ramped to near 30. Beautiful rising channel. Looks like a long 1, 2, 3, and this is a rising flag wave 4 with momentum. It could see mid-30s. IoT in Samsara, beautiful long-term chart from under 10 to over 50, and yet, even though it did pull back late in the week with the rest of the market, targeting 64.5. This is the ETF for the airline group. I showed you Delta and United, and you can see why the ETF, Jets, is doing what it's doing, having gone from 16.25 to 25. KC, this is Chinese, explodes, implodes, but very few of these Chinese stocks have done what they did, made a new high. Now looking for a momentum move towards 6. KD, that's Kyndryl, the IBM split off from a couple years ago. Beautiful rising channel. At resistance and it backed up, but if it gets through here, we're looking at 32 and 35. LABD and the ETF, the bear ETF for biotech, you can see with biotech's having such a bad week. This has gone from 478 to 712. Big move. Now it's gone through the declining top line and lateral price resistance as well. That would be right there. So I'm not looking for a test. Maybe even as early as Monday morning at about 7:45.50. LAC, Rallying bottom, breakout, we put a swing on it and ran up to the target and backed off. It's right on support. This group in itself hasn't done well this week. It was a really bad week for the lithium stocks. Lithium Americas needs to hold support right there. If it does, 5.5, 6.5, and 8 are targets. LFVN, it's a beautiful long base. It finally broke out when it went through there. It ran up, popped, pulled back and tested, and you can see the rising channel on this one. And it's targeting 17.5 and 20. LITE, a tech trader swing from back here when it broke out. No, actually here when it broke out. Stair stepped its way up in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-wave move. So it's a little bit extended in the 5th wave near the top of the channel. It did pull back on Friday, be careful, but extension target is 97. LMND coming out of a base exploded and had a very good week despite the market consolidating in this area. What it needs is a move over 35 to get it into 40 and 45. Louisiana Pacific, the forest products company, has gone from 51 to 112, more than doubling, in a beautiful rising channel, and now flagging. I wanted to show you this one, extension 135. LSF, pop, coil, flag, another coil, a flag. You can see the way the stock acts, targeting 16. LTBR, and one of those, I believe, it considered a power generator, although it doesn't say that. Had a beautiful explosive move that took it from 2.5 into the 14 range, pulled back and bounced, and now it's got a 3-wave corrective falling wedge. 100% stop under 6. Target is 10 and 12. LUMN finally broke out. It went over a 2-week period, went from 6 to 10 and above 10. And you can see the last 4 days with the rest of the market. It's pulled back on kind of a falling flag. I still like the look of this, but I want to make sure it holds right where it is, or it could break down. Lunar exploded, reversed, came down, reversed again, back up. You don't see that too often, but it's usually bullish, targeting 14.5 and 18. MNPR went vertical for 1 day. Listen to this, 487 to 38 in 1 day. 20 million share traded. And it came down and bounced, but it's in a coil pattern. I don't know what this does, but if it does break above Thursday's high, above 19.75, it could go back into the mid-high 20s or more. MP, a tech trader swing, popped here. We put a swing on it, and then stepped up its way higher, made it to my target zone at 2021, reached 20.58, and it's pulled back a little. Careful on this one too, and the stop is under 17.25. MSTX, the ETF for MSTR, wonderful week or two, taking it from 41 to 117, folks. That's right, 70 points and 75 points or something like that in a week and a half, and now the pullback. Let's see if the momentum takes this even higher. Everything depends on Bitcoin. NWA, a water company. Oh, this is not. Oh, yeah, Muller Water, right? Actually broke out of the angle and accelerated to the top of the accelerated channel, and it stalled it here. This and a reverse Friday engulfing reversal bar bullish. Pretty impressive move. I wouldn't be shocked to see high 20s, low 30s. NANX, something new, low price special. Had a great report for the quarter. Been sitting in consolidating quietly. It's a low volume stock. It popped wedge and popped again. Made a new high on Friday at 250. My target is 3.5 and 4.5. NCLH in the cruise line ship. This is Norwegian Caribbean Lines. Breaks out of its base, ramps up to the target, flags, and pops again. It's flagging again. I don't know when these are done, but they sure have momentum, and I think 30 is the target. NNE, another of those power generators, could be double topped in here. It's losing technical momentum, and underlying technicals are weak. I'd be careful with this one. And Netgear broke out with a breakaway gap and pulled back on a falling wedge and formed a larger consolidation and broke out, and now it's flagging. Target 27. Nutanix, well, it got to exactly to 73.69, which is exactly a high here of 73.69. So double top, 6 months apart, don't see that too often. If it does get through, we're looking at 75 and 80. NTRA, when it popped here and flagged back in March, I believe, I gave you a trade around 89. Well, it doubled to 167 with a big breakaway gap on earnings. I believe that was 2 days ago. Now it's pulling back to try to fill that gap, I believe. Nevertheless, longer term, 180 target. Little NXL, we give you a trade about 2.5. It's up to 410. That's a swing, but you can see it stuck its head to new all-time highs and has extreme strong relative strength up the last 4 days in a row in a declining market. Pretty amazing relative strength, which means if you do get any market rally whatsoever, this is a $5-6 stock. OKLO broke down on Friday from the trend, but not through price support. If it breaks 17.5, see you later. This is a stock that's gone literally from 5 to 29. It's one of those power generators, but I think the whole group is starting to waver and pull back. Moving on, ONON, the tech trader swing. I believe we gave it to you back here in May. It may have been here, but it's in a beautiful rising channel and it's actually accelerating. My target now is mid 60s. UMA, V bottom, right-handed extension, filled the gap in platform and spiked, wedged, coiled, flagged, target 16. OPFIs had a beautiful rising channel and actually broke through double top last week. The week before, I should say, and last week pulled back a little. Beautiful long-term chart. It's at a 3-year high. Opera broke out of a base and formed a beautiful wedge here, folks. Keep your eye on this one next week. Relative strength's excellent. $23 is your target. Oracle. It's the other half of the tandem, I think, between Dell and Oracle, besides that are going to benefit from AI, besides NVIDIA. That's what I'm hearing, and my research and my technical analysis tells me this goes higher. Target is 210. Oust. Pop broke out. We put a swing on it. It pulled right back to support. It needs to hold here, or this is a failed trade. PAY popped the base, formed the coil, and exploded. Went vertical to 37, and one day went from 10 points and didn't back off much, and it's consolidating. Extension targets are 40 and 44. PAYO is a tech trader swing I put on after it broke out of flag here in the $7 range. Well, it's made it up to over 11. It's at now near an all-time high, and extended needs to consolidate, but I think it's looking at 12 or better. PCT breaks out of a base, pulls back and spikes, forms a coil, pops, and retests. It looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4 from here. So I'd project a fifth wave to 15, 16, and then 20, 21, 22. PLL popped and broke out. We put a swing on it. It did very well for a week, pulled back, and over the last month, it's been backing and filling and consolidating. But this one needs to be over 14, 60 with energy to get to 17, 3/4, and then 21, 22. Palantir is one of the strongest stocks of the year. We've been on this one since it was a single-digit stock. Recently, from the August low of 21, it's tripled to 66. In particular, very incredible relative strength shown the last 2 weeks, especially Friday when the market was hammered and this was up 730, closing at the high for the day, going away. Don't know how far it goes, but the momentum is phenomenal. Poet, pop, falling wedge, pop, coil, pop, falling wedge. Bottom line is it continues to form those kind of patterns. The targets are 5.5 and 7.5 if it continues. PPTA broke out of a base from the consolidation for several months, spiked up again, and now is a rising pattern. Extension is the 14, 15 range, in my opinion. Peloton exploded out of a falling channel through resistance, coiled, broke out, ran up, and it's wedging. Look, it's had a pretty good move from 2 to 9, more than quadrupling. So it may be due for some pullback consolidation. The eventual target is 11. Pull matrix on last 3 days of the week went vertical from 2 to 7, and then pulled back, but ramped right up again on Friday, which is a good sign. It may want to even go higher. Red Cat comes out of a base, retest, forms a wedge, breaks out, coils, pops again. Look at the action on Friday again in the face of a lousy market. This one jumped 18% on 7.5 million, which is a big volume for that stock. I'm targeting 7 now. Redwire, beautiful base, breakout, big wedge, pop, retest the breakout point, and then run up and break out. Right now, it feels like a stock that could be mid-teens. Our Rev Group has been in an uptrend for a year and a half since mid-June of last year when it was $10. Well, it's tripled to 30. It came down and formed a multi-month consolidation. It gapped up through it, but not through the high, and now it's consolidating. If it gets to 32, I would look for mid-30s and then 40. Rocket Lab. What a beautiful chart this is. Broke out at 5. Ran up and had a falling wedge here. Popped and flagged, popped and flagged, popped and flagged, and then exploded. It did pull back, but it got as high last week of 22.5 from $5. What a move this year. Careful though, you cannot let it get underneath Friday's low. It did reverse, but I don't want it under that low. Stop is under 16.25. Target 22.5 and 25. RNA after a tech trader swing pick back in a year ago at 6 3/4, I believe it was. This week it spiked to a new all-time high at 56 and then got crushed on Friday. This is another biotech that got hammered. One of the reasons why the biotech indices, the ETFs, I should say, were as weak as they were. Root, as you know, exploded to 120 a couple weeks ago and pulled back. But look at the move on Friday. Friday jumping from 75 to 91 and finishing there, up $12. And no telling where this goes. Rush Street Interactive in a beautiful rising channel for a year now. It's gone from 3 to 12 and pull back. It needs to hold support, which I would say would be underneath 995 to stop on the 10 with a target in the mid-teens. Revolve breaks out of a base, rising channel, it spikes, and has a rising pattern here too. Target is 39. Saba has been coiling now for 3 months. It's acting like it wants to try to come out. Keep an eye on it. You got to get to 33 to really get going. Then your targets are high 30s, low 40s. SEL breaks out of a base, forms a flag, pops, forms another one, and explodes. And it's gone, last 2 weeks, nonstop. This is another oil and gas equipment and services company. And you can see why I like it. Breaking out of a 5-year base. SMMT broke out of its base, popped and formed a little flag or coil, and stepped up its way up before exploding, and now it's coiling again. Looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4 to me. If it holds 17, targeting mid to high 30s. SMR is the stronger of the 3 right now, although it did pull back Thursday, Friday. It's still well above its trend line and looking better than the others technically. I'm referring to OKLO and NNE. This is the better of the 3. It's a swing to 35. SOFI's had a great couple of months, moving from under 7, doubling to 14.44, and a little bit of a flag pullback here. Good momentum, real good momentum. 15 and 16 and 3/4 targets. SOUN long coil, breakout, retest, double, triple top broken here, and then retested. Has to hold that level, be cognizant of the fact that support is at 6. Resistance 8, target is 9 and 10. SRTS, I've been following this for years, and after it came down hard and reversed and wedged, this is where I liked it. At the 3 3/4 range, it's doubled into the $8 zone and backed off on Friday from 8.29 to 7.65. But market permitting, that target is 10. TILE, I like the way this stock has been trending upward in the channel. Key breakout came 2 weeks ago in a breakaway gap, and it's run right up to the target. A little extended here, may pull back, but the eventual target is 29. TOST certainly isn't toast. It's come out of a beautiful long-term base, exploded, and it's been up every day in a row, 9 days in this market. Pretty amazing relative strength. Keep an eye on it. TRAK, I like the long-term chart indeed. Broke out of a base, in about June of last year when it was trading around 7. Well, it's tripled, and it's in a rising configuration. My target is 23.5 and 26. Trupanion, beautiful base breakout. I've been talking about this for 2 months. Pop, coil, pop, another one, and the next target is 68. TSLL we've been talking about because I like the way Tesla acted, but it did come down after reaching the channel top. It's had support. TVTX breaks out of a base, runs sharply, flags, pops, wedges, pops, pulls back. Another biotech stock that got hammered back during the week, but it's holding support for now. Extension target is mid-20s. Excuse me, UIS, which I gave you as a swing when it broke out, then pulled back, and then it exploded. Got to my target, and it's sitting here consolidating. Actually pulled back a little on Friday, but my target is 9 3/4. Unified, beautiful base breakout, and a gorgeous coil for me. 24, 28, 31, all targets for this food company. Upstart broke out here with a breakaway gap, pulled back and tested it, formed the wedge, broke out, formed the flag, exploded. It's had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-wave move, so it's obviously extended from 20 to the mid 80s in 90 days. How about that? Pull back wedge is suspect, but it doesn't look bad. VIRT breaks out of a base, pulls back, explodes, stair steps its way higher, pops and wedges. I got a target of 40 and 44. Vimeo popped out. We put a swing on it. It's pulled back orderly and reversed Friday. Let's see if it holds. My target, 7 3/4 and 9. VRNA, beautiful base, breakout. Look at the stair step move here. Pop, wedge, pop, flag, 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 flag. And now the pullback in a rising channel. Configuration 45 target. VST, that's one of my power generators. Beautiful chart. And that's as strong as SMR, if not the strongest one in the pack. Targeting 160 and 180. WGS we've been on top of since it broke out. I believe it was in May at about 20. And it made it up to 89 for more than a quadruple. Although it didn't have a good day Friday and broke that flag, it's still above support here. Let's see what that does. Target 100. Walmart's been amazing considering the rest of the market and still holding up around 84.5 with a target of 89.90. Warby Parker breaking out of a base. Wanted to show you that. This is a 3-year base pattern and it's run up to the first target. It should have pulled back. I would look for entry opportunities around 20 with a target of mid-20s. WULF, pop coil, and pop with a 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe one wave left. Depends on Bitcoin, of course. This is a crypto related. Target's 11.5 3/4. ZIM with a beautiful breakout here. Consolidate and pop in the middle of a lousy market. This stock's been making new highs. Target 39.40. ZVRA, which is the last of my longs, very strong pattern, especially considering it's junior biotech. I did pull back on Friday, but look at that chart. I have a base consolidating, targeting 11. Folks, we got some shorts and some new ones to talk about. Let's go do it. Alphabetically, AMAT. That's a massive head and shoulders, folks. And Friday it broke. We had a day trade on it. And you can see the way this looks to me like we're going down 155 and then maybe 138.40. ATI also feels like it's rolling over. Now it broke down and bounced off trend line to the neckline and then back down again and bounce. So it's going to have to break down first, but it's something I'm watching. The underlying technicals look weak. So what I'm thinking is under 52, we go short for 47.8 and then 40.42. Bluebird looks like that broke its channel on Friday after a massive move up. It saw the stock go from 7 to 60. It may be breaking down. My targets are 32 and 28. Boot, I put a tech trader swing short on it. I just think after the breakaway gap and then that bear wedge, if it breaks and the technicals suck, that this stock could make it down to 110 and maybe 98. CAMT indicated short when it broke down a snapback to the trend line with a bear flag. It broke down. It's been bouncing back and forth in what looks like a large lateral bear consolidation in 1, 2, 3, wave 4. The fifth wave gets us down to 57.58. CEG, to me, right on support, actually a little below it on Friday. Look at the gap too. If it collapses here, you might see quick 200. Crocs has been on my short list for a while. Head and shoulder top, breakdown, and no bounce. The way this looks, if it does bounce, it'll be a short opportunity. Hopefully you can get a short around 110.12, and then that's a long way from here. But if you get it, and it comes on low volume, short it for 86 and 75. DR Horton, the builder. This, my friends, is a head and shoulder top. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. See it? Breakaway gap to the downside, snap back to the gap, fail, and roll over. Now, coming off of a low like that, this could be a bull wedge. I doubt it. The technicals look terrible. If it breaks down under 160, I'm looking for 150 and 138. HCA broke down, bear flagged, and broke down on Friday again. This doesn't look good. My target, 315, 285. Harrow. After being on my long list for a long time and being a tech trader swing from here, it finally broke. Coming down to the trend line and bouncing, it then rolled over and got crushed on Thursday. Friday had a downside follow through. I believe if it breaks here, it's probably headed to 31 from near 40. LDOS, look at this hit on Friday, last week. Massive move up. So I go from 77 to over 200 and then get crushed. Now, I would like to see a bounce back towards 168.70 range for a short that takes us down to 145. Lennar, another builder with a head and shoulder top, a breakdown, and a wedge. This one looks bearish. I think Lennar heads down towards 140. Lilly, well, with the new drug czar, Mr. Kennedy, a lot of drug companies are reacting negatively. He's going to put a pinch on prices, that's for sure. Anyway, you can see that it's down, broken its long-term trend line. It may have rolled over. If it breaks through here, look out below. Logitech. Sloppy, broke down from the bear wedge and broke down again. It's at support, but if it breaks here, we're headed for 68. MOH, just spotted that this week. Large left shoulder complex, head and right shoulder complex at the neckline here. They got creamed on Friday for, they come back off the low. But you can see that Friday's low is taken out. This could be headed to 230 and 205. Micron. Yes, folks, this spiked up to key resistance, came down. It's formed a big bear wedge and broke on Friday. Something tells me this is a 1-2, and then we're headed to 3 down here, and they're 75. Folks, that's 20 points. Stay tuned. NBIX broke down. Snapped back to the neckline. Couldn't get through. And Friday, had hammered for 567. This is vulnerable. It's another drug biotech stock. Looks to me like 105 is the target. NVO also rolling over. Another biotech, a large one with a massive head and shoulder top. Breakdown, bear flag. Breakdown, 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 breakdown. Looks like headed for, I got an 88 target. ONTO in the semiconductor group. Broke down, rising wedge, and broke down again. Should it get underneath here? Keep an eye on it. It takes out 150. I think we'll see 135 and less. Impinge, one of my favorites, finally broke down from the bear wedge, broke through resistance, support. Trend line, moving average are rolling over. This is a negative looking chart. I would now look for 155, 45, and 35. PSN also imploded this week. I'd look for a bounce back, and if you get one and it's weak or on low volume, and or form some sort of flag or wedge around 100 to 103, now look for a short down into the mid-80s. Qualcomm looks like a rollover to me. It's a head and shoulders here, a breakdown in the long flag type pattern. If it breaks this 3-month consolidation, we're probably headed lower. First to test 152 and then to 140 or less. Excuse me. Shippers, in general, have broken their patterns. This one's really come down from the mid-80s all the way down to the mid-50s. So I would need this to bounce in a 1, 2, 3, fourth wave before I can reject lower levels into the 40s. Tidewater, another oil and gas head and shoulder type top, breakdown, bear wedge. This is where I said this is absolutely a tech trader swing short. 92 to 50. And it's at support, so I'd cover here, but it could be that this stock is even head lower. Another shipper, TK Tankers, head and shoulder breakdown. Any snap back towards 49.51 zone would be a short to 36.7. UHS, long-term channel breaking, topping pattern broken. Came down right to the gap here, filled it, and bounced. We'll see what happens with this one. Vroom, that's Vera Mobility, head and shoulder top breakdown and a wedge. I think we're going to 20, and I think we're going to 18. And folks, a couple more to talk about. Weatherford, massive top broken. There's the bear wedge. And from that level, 110, it went down to 77, and it may not be done. XYL breaks the top, snaps back and fails, and starts to pull over. Right now, I'm looking for 115, and then 108. Yelp broke out, it looks like, to the upside after the head and shoulder pattern and rising flag formed a opportunity to short at 41. It did make it down to 32, and it bounced. But be careful with this one. If it doesn't go any further and it breaks back under here, you could very well still see $30. And folks, that's it. The long and short of it. The underlying technicals, the ETFs, everything you need to know for next week. Please review carefully and a couple of times to really get a feel of where the market's at, where the stocks you like the most are at. And we'll talk more about it on Monday. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye, everybody.